I have a chance to show how kind we can be, how intelligent and generous we can be. I have a chance to teach and to love and to laugh. And I know that when I finish doing what I'm sent here to do, I will be called home. And I will go home without any fear, trepidation, some, wondering what's going to happen.
And what advice would you have to give this generation?
Tell the truth. To yourself first, and to the children.
How are we supposed to follow that? I mean, I guess start the show, but what's the point?
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about not fearing death and telling the truth to children. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey man, I'm Brian Brushwood, but more importantly, Bryce Castillo.
Hi.
As our producer, I would expect you to set us up to look better than, how are we going to follow that?
This is great. No, that's great. Netflix set this up as a teaser for the new Homecoming movie.
So this is what? This is a documentary about a year of preparation for Beyonce's live show or something? Or?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a bit of behind the scenes and probably a recording of the Coachella Live performance from 2018. So this is going to come out on April 17th, which is about almost a year after she did that last show.
Well, the important question is, what does our friend Merrill Barr think of it all the way from Los Angeles, California? How are you, Merrill?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
Good.
And all I have to say is you're not going to convince me that this isn't Netflix taking a swipe at Amazon with their own Homecoming television series. The War of the Homecomings is coming.
And Hulu. Wait, is it Hulu that's streaming Coachella or YouTube?
YouTube.
Whoever's taking a swipe at YouTube with a little Coachella content, right?
I do like the idea. I do like the idea of Beyonce's Homecoming taking on not Sam Raimi, Rami Malek's. Oh yeah, Sam Esmail. That's what I'm trying to think of. I keep wanting to confabulate the two. Yeah, whatever.
Rami Raimi Esmail.
Rami Raimi.
By the way, Brian, now that I'm here and can tell you to your face, let me just say that The Modern Rogue is by far the best independent television series.
Look, that's fine.
On the web.
That's fine that it is. That is fine that that's your opinion. But until it becomes the official stated opinion of a major news publication, like, I don't know, say Forbes, then get back. Oh wait, that's exactly what Forbes said. Thank you very much for that article. That was awesome.
Dude, like, I've been watching the show since it started. Well, I came about a year late on it, and it filled that Mythbusters hole in my heart that ran so deep. And this is gonna sound weird, but it's the best compliment I can give your show. I can fall asleep to your show.
You know what? That's you and my wife in good company with each other. Both of you can fall asleep to yours truly.
It's so soothing. I have watched you eat hot peppers and almost die a myriad of times at this point.
Oh, well, the good news is we've already nailed the ad for this week. But in the meantime, shall we jump into our primary target?
Yes, indeed. Now, in addition to having Merrill on to convince Brian that, yes, indeed, what he does is, in fact, really, really good, and not just his friends believe that, Merrill's also going to help us understand one of the biggest controversies going on in Hollywood that you may think doesn't matter to you, but it probably does. There has been a long battle and negotiation, and I guess recently an agreement between the Writers Guild and the talent agencies. That's about as much as I understand about this, Merrill. Can you explain this to us?
Yeah, so basically the talent agencies are represented by an organization called the ATA, and then the WGA is representing the writers. And typically when you hear about these kinds of battles, it's usually the WGA versus the studios. And that's when you hear about the threats of work stoppage, and this is what happened in 2007 when the writers were on strike.
We'll get Pushing Daisies canceled and stuff like that.
Exactly, and no more TV shows. So what's happening here is there's no threat of work stoppage. The writers are not going to stop working. The threat is that if by a certain deadline, a certain contract is not renegotiated, the writers are basically going to all fire their agents. Now, on its face, it sounds like, why does that matter to you, the end user? Who cares, right? It's big elitist entity versus other big elitist entity.
Yeah, millionaires fighting with people who probably make the same amount as we do.
Exactly. So the reason it matters is what the WGA is fighting is a problem that's preventing shows you probably want to see from people who you want to see shows from getting on the air. And to me, this is best summed up by Josh Friedman, who creator of Terminator, the Sarah Connor Chronicles, most recently had created, but then left Snowpiercer, or as he would say, was fired from Snowpiercer. Basically, the issue is this thing called packaging, and what the agencies will try and sell you on is packaging is just when we take as many of our own clients as possible and put them together, which is not inherently what the WGA has a problem with. What the WGA has a problem with is the agencies then hold the shows hostage for additional fees above the 10% they would normally be making from their clients. So in the case Josh lays out, basically there's an IP that Josh is approached with. Studio approaches Josh with an IP. Josh goes, I can't do this myself. He goes to another writer that the same studio has a deal with and says, hey, will you team up with me on this thing because I can't do it myself? And he goes, yes, Josh Freeman, absolutely. And the problem is that this other person is at a different agency than Josh. So they go through the process. They have to go pitch the author, who, and that's how they'll get the sign off to do the show based on the IP, whatever this IP was. And basically, the agency of the other guy blackballed not only Josh but their own client, and basically badmouthed them to the rights holder to convince them not to go with them, so that way a different client who was also up for the same job would get a better shot at pitching the author, and thus they would get 100% of the package instead of 50% of the package.
So it's when somebody crosses outside the package, the talent agencies don't like it because they're not going to make as much money. Is that right?
That, and it's also, they've now done this other thing where they're starting to form their own studios, their own production companies, the agencies are. And the problem with that is that if you are represented by an agency who's producing your show, they have far less of an incentive to get you as much money as possible because they also want to save money at the same time. And the agency's response has always been, well, but we don't charge you our standard 10% when we do that. Yeah, but the money I'm making the money they're making is still less, is the argument of WGA. But the biggest problem to me is what Josh laid out here is this issue of whole shows you want to see probably are not being made because of this problem. Because things are being held hostage. Properties, whole projects are held hostage by these writers, by these agencies, rather.
I imagine that's difficult for people to wrap their heads around when we see so many things go into development, like your favorite book gets optioned and it never hits. You think, well, that just happens in Hollywood anyway. Plus, we have more great television shows to choose from than ever before. Everybody's always talking about peak television. Are you trying to tell me that peak television would be even peakier if it weren't for this problem?
I think what happens is there's also a big thing happening in town, the idea of the open writing assignment, and the idea of the studio goes to the writer and says, we have an idea, do you want to be involved? And I've talked to a number of writers who kind of all give me the same version of this story, which is, no, I don't want to do it, but it's work, and I do want to work, so they take the job, and then they end up over time falling in love with the project, and then the project falls apart for one of a number of reasons, but they were not really excited to do it. This is part of the reason they're not getting the stuff they want through, is because it doesn't meet the agencies are acting as one of 1,000 other gatekeepers preventing certain projects from getting online. And that's a problem.
This reminds me a little bit of, years and years and years ago, we talked about Beer Wars, a documentary talking about the independent creator of craft beers, the distributors, and then the retailers. And there was legally a distinction between the three. It was allegedly supposed to be for checks and balances so that you couldn't directly sell your stuff to your local grocery stores or whatever. This feels like it has a similar structure to it, but it's not clear to me what the benefit is of a three-way institution like this. Like what allegedly should the talent agencies be I suppose they should be a gatekeeper for both sides and say, we are bringing you the highest quality writings from the Writers Guild, and then we are bringing you to the highest quality producers, Mr. Writers.
Right. What they need to be doing is what they used to do. which is you go in, you take your 10%, and that's where you make your money. But now they are making their money through these packaging fees, through producing their own content, through outside equity, which was another huge problem that the WGA had, which they think that they were getting money from, I think it was Saudi Arabia, from Saudi Arabian investment from somewhere. But they basically have the clients have become as a showrunner named Amy Berg put it recently. The clients have become a side hustle of the agencies. Yet without the product that the clients produce, there is no agency. So you would think that would mean that your clients are still top priority, but they're not, because they have found a way to make money elsewhere.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because your writers aren't a growth area, right? There's a certain amount of shows get done and a certain amount of writers to do them, and you have, they don't keep getting paid more and more by the people out there as a group, right? You can get paid more and more as you get more experienced and can demand more money, but as an amount of money that's out there to be paid to writers, I suppose it's kind of a pretty stagnant sum, and so the talent agencies need to look elsewhere to gain advantage, other than stealing talent from other agencies.
Right, but all of that would be, no one's against, the WGA is not inherently against the agencies making money that they want to make it. They're private corporation. That's what private corporations do. Sure. The issue is when it starts, when that money-making process starts being in direct conflict with the people they're supposed to be servicing first, which is their clients. So which is what they're not doing.
Preventing a writer from getting a job.
It's a lot,
which is exactly what's laid out here.
It's a lot easier for me to wrap my mind around this scenario if I think of it as an individual talent company, because obviously if a talent agency fails to represent its talent appropriately and instead starts serving its own interests and start using the talent pool as their own personal reservoir, then that is a bad talent agency and it should get washed out by the market. But in this case, we're talking about a systemic all of that niche of the market wide problem, and that's what I guess again, WGA is the writers. Who are the other guys?
ATA. The ATA represents the big four specifically: WME, CAA, ICM, UTA. And so
it sounds like this is a four-way, like, agreed upon thing. We're going to look out for number one. We're not going to actually represent our clients, and we're not. Okay.
Yeah, and then the smaller agencies look at what the big four are doing and go, well, I want a piece of that business. So I want to, even though we're not a packaging company, we one day want to be. So we're going to side with the big four because, all of us together, but at the cost of what? And it sounds like it's at the cost of content that we want to watch.
I think that's what's the most interesting about this, and why you as a viewer or me as a viewer might care, is it's not that writers aren't getting jobs, it's that they're getting jobs they don't want to do. And so two things happen. One is, writers probably are less likely to do their best work when they're just doing a job because they have to. And like you said before, things that might be even better than the great things that we have out there to choose from don't get made because they kind of fall in the gaps between these packages.
Yeah, I guess to me, from my outside eyes, I seek to make a reductionist argument. It feels to me like there's a place for an attorney, because you don't want, theoretically, let's say we live in the real world, not a perfect simulation, but you don't want writers talking directly to studios, because studios can hose over the writers and not pay full value for the content. So you want an attorney, you want a representative, you want an agency to make sure you get value on both sides. But in this case, we have institutionally a bad actor happening here, and this is a case of the WGA saying, this is a bad actor, you are not serving our interests, we need to fix this. And it is a problem for the end consumer, because if we're not getting the shows we want from the talent we want in this other side world where the writers and the producers can work together, we would have better shows. And the only thing screwing it up is the fact that we have essentially an attorney role that's not doing their job.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad we solved all that. You're welcome, WGA.
So just call us, ATA, WGA. We've got this all figured out for you. It's not a problem. No, it's a fundamental conflict of purposes. ATA is like, what makes us the most money? We'll make you the most money, so you should just go along with it. And the writers are saying, yeah, but it's not that simple. And when you blindly package, leave things get fall out.
It feels like a case of what happens when you take what is a very simple business model, which is you get 10% of my income, right? And you stack on, like, it's when basically, like everyone complains about the idea of the fine print and the hidden fees and all the crazy language when you're reading fine print on contracts and you're like, wait, I agreed to what? That's what this feels like to me anyway, is you had a very simple concept. I make money, you get 10%. That's the WGAs, and that was the original model and the way Hollywood existed for years. And then the agency said, well, we can make more money if we make this system more complicated. And that's essentially what they did. And what the WGA wants to do is simplify that system again.
In this case, we're not looking at a lawsuit or any such thing. What we're looking at is a breakdown over agreements of the franchise agreement, whatever.
But it could be a lawsuit. It's an inherent conflict of interest what the agencies are doing, particularly with what they're doing by forming their own studios. I'll put it in a live magic context. Imagine if you were going to perform at a theater and you were repped by a talent agent, and the talent agency also owned the theater that was going to pay you.
Right. Okay. And you've finally done it. You put it so simply, even a magician can understand it. Well done.
Hey, you know what else is simple? It's a simple proposition, Brian.
Yeah. I hope it's not you're about to say that they can fund us directly because, wait, we don't own Patreon. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, a simple proposition is you can just be our boss on the show.
Yeah.
There's no agent involved between you and our show. You go to patreon.com/Cordkillers, you pledge $1, and there's no complex system. Patreon does keep a little bit for the charge of running the website for us, and we get the money. We do the show. It's simple.
You know what? Even better than that, you get your own RSS feed. You're able to get the show, Spoilerin Time, and After Talk. Is it After Talk? Yes.
Yes, it's called After Talk.
It's called After. There's too many. And you get After Talk. But the important thing is that you get your own feed. You get to spend more time with us. You're supporting the show directly, and you're making it possible to keep us loud, live, and independent. We cannot thank you guys enough. 1,465 of you beautiful, beautiful bosses. You changed our lives, and we continue to try to make yours better.
Getting closer to that 1,500 that we need to make a new video. Patreon.com/Cordkillers.
We got
this. Could you guys tell me where you source the sheep that you sacrifice on a monthly basis for those patrons?
The sheep? No, we sacrifice our souls. What are you talking about? Come on.
Wait, no, don't reveal the secret. Let's talk about how to watch. Got a bunch of Netflix news. The one that most people are hearing about is a price increase. This is not news. Netflix announced the price increase in January for the U.S. and Latin America, but it's starting to affect existing subscribers. As of May, people are getting their emails. To refresh your memory, basic plan goes from $8 to $9. The standard HD package goes from $11 to $13, and the 4K plan, which has the 4 simultaneous streams, goes from $14 to $16. And you should get an email from Netflix letting you know when your price rise is going to happen. Netflix also has removed the ability for its iOS app to AirPlay. Just as Apple is expanding the number of devices out there, like all the smart TVs we've been talking about, that can incorporate AirPlay, specifically AirPlay 2. Now, Netflix says that's the problem. AirPlay 2 doesn't have digital identifiers that let Netflix tell which device it's streaming to when you're using AirPlay. And Netflix told The Verge, with AirPlay support rolling out to third-party devices, there isn't a way for us to distinguish between them. What is an Apple TV versus what isn't, or certify these experiences. Therefore, we have decided to discontinue Netflix AirPlay support to ensure our standard of quality for viewing is being met. Members can continue to access Netflix on the built-in app across Apple TV and other devices. So there's two things particularly that catch my eye here, Brian. One is Netflix trying to say it's a technical issue, but really it's an issue over control particularly control of consumer data. And we know Apple is making their own original content, so there may be a little bit more of a fight going on there. But also, it's the fact that some people are saying, so who cares if you AirPlay or not? You can get it on the app. And there are people who prefer, even when there's an app on their smart TV or their Apple TV, to AirPlay to it.
Do you believe them, Merrill? Do you believe Netflix at all?
Here's my one counter: is what makes Chromecasting different than the AirPlay? Because I can Chromecast my Netflix to from my phone to my Chromecast. How is that different than the AirPlay that they're claiming?
It's a different protocol because it's going to the Chromecast and it knows it's going to the Chromecast. Where what Netflix is trying to argue is the Samsung TV is different than the LG TV, which is different than the Apple TV. And so we don't know which device we're sending it to. When we're sending it to a Chromecast, we're always sending it to a Chromecast. We know the device.
Now, you'll have to refresh my memory on AirPlay. So AirPlay is mirroring what's on the phone.
Correct,
right?
or essentially slinging it over to another screen.
It does a little more than that in an AirPlay too. It acts a little bit more like a Chromecast, where it doesn't just mirror the screen. And in fact, I believe that you would still be able to mirror your screen playing Netflix through AirPlay 2. It's the more seamless experience of actually sending the video over AirPlay 2 that is being blocked here.
But when I AirPlay, it's not pulling. When I AirPlay, it's taking, basically the stream is passing my phone to my Apple TV.
Right.
When I AirPlay.
As I understand it, like Netflix's frustration is, yes, it's downloading to your phone and then it's going somewhere. And because they can't tell where somewhere is, whether it's this brand of TV or that other brand of TV, the solution naturally is to not let you use that service at all. For quote unquote reasons.
Do you think that this is
Beatmaster's pointing out that Chromecast is built into some TVs, but again, Chromecast may tell Netflix which TV it's built into in those cases, because the issue is we don't know where it's going.
Do you think that this could be a DRM issue, Tom? Because my understanding is that some DRM licensing contracts require that, like, if you're doing a 1080 or a 4K stream, you need to have certain DRM technology available, which is why we see things like 720p.
That would change when you added televisions in, right? You were AirPlaying to Apple TV just fine. Mm-hmm. And you can also AirPlay to a Chromecast or a cast-enabled TV just fine. So it doesn't seem to be built on the type of content.
Even if they can't confirm the resolution, I guess?
No, you may be onto something there, but I doubt it. I doubt that that's the real reason. I think it really is more about Netflix. Netflix is very good at optimizing its streams and saying, okay, if we know what device is coming, we know how to make that stream work really well on that device. So there's a legitimate beef here. But it is throwing the baby and the bathwater out at the same time, I think.
If I were to, and I have no justification for this, but it feels to me like even if from a technical aspect, there is some benefit to knowing exactly what everything is streamed at the end user. Let's say they really do care about the end user experience and they want to uniform everything. Even if all of that is true, still feel like this particular move is designed to just raise the interference level for Apple just enough to give Netflix more leverage. Because there's a reason Netflix was not a part of Apple TV at launch. There's a reason. And if they're doing backroom negotiations, seems like it would be a very good idea to take a perfectly legitimate technical reason and just make it slightly more unpleasant for Apple in general so that you can work that deal out in the backrooms.
I mean, the other thing I would take into account is, and we'll get into this in another story that's coming up, is Netflix is not in the habit of doing things that it knows is intentionally going to harm itself. Mm-hmm. And in this instance, I would be interested to know, because they would know this, how many of their users actually take advantage of this feature?
It's got to be so few, right?
And more importantly, how many that take advantage of it? And I've heard on Twitter from people who are like, no, even though there's an app, I love the convenience of just being on my phone and sending from Netflix. How many of them are going to cancel Netflix because that feature is gone, right? That's the real one.
So it feels like one of those, it feels like a symbolic move more than anything.
Well, I think Brian's on to something about it being leveraged, because really the big fight is over data control and fees. And Netflix recently pulled out the ability to subscribe to Netflix through the App Store on iOS and Apple TV because they didn't want to give Apple a cut of those fees anymore.
Yeah, I'm pretty great. No, I mean, it really does feel like this is there's essentially no negative on their end to do this. They're not really taking anything away because I don't think many people are using this feature. I think they're just tweaking the nipple of Apple.
Yeah. And they could just say like, oh, if we don't know what device it's going to be 1080 because we know we always have the rights to stream that. And they're saying, no, that would not be a good enough. So we're just going to take it away entirely. I don't know. I think they know it won't hurt their bottom line, and they know it will annoy Apple and give them another stick in the pile of leverage that they're building up.
Well, especially
real quickly too, Moffett-Nathanson estimates that 14% of U.S. Netflix users admit they're using an account paid for by someone they don't live with to watch Netflix. That's different than I'm in the house with my parents. Like I don't even live with these people and I'm using their login. That's not so much surprising. We've heard numbers like this before. What I found more interesting in this survey was people were asked their top reasons for having a Netflix subscription. And the top two reasons people gave were not being interrupted by ads and being able to choose what to watch.
Yeah. Well, and plus also, if you think about it, people who are using other people's passwords definitely are Netflix customers. They are just latent. They are just behind in their payments. They haven't found themselves in a situation where they have to choose between awkwardly asking for oh, did you change your password, mom and dad? Oh, can I have it again? Or just decide I'd rather spend $9 a month for the basic version of this. And we saw HBO do a similar thing with its weird complacency with pirated materials, where before they were making their stuff available to either purchase or download or stream, HBO enjoyed a lot of notoriety for being the most pirated content on the internet. I think Netflix is aware that there's value to all of these so-called freeloaders.
I feel like that's why I said I feel like that's the less interesting part of this report. The idea that Netflix being commercial free is actually the number one reason people like Netflix. I don't think we think about that enough.
Well, you and I had a discussion about this exact topic when we talked about the idea of there being a commercial version of Netflix. And I made the case that it's like right now they are virginal. And once they cross over that ad threshold, it's going to be bad news for them. If anything, this encourages me to believe I was right in that discussion and that the numbers bear out that they should not cross that threshold at all.
By the way, we were talking about ads in the interface, not ads in the shows.
Sure.
And I think that is a qualitative difference, but this sort of indicates that the people are more ad sensitive on Netflix than they would be other places.
I mean, what's weird is I've never been that bothered by the idea of an ad issue, right? It's something that doesn't, if it's not, as long as if there's an option where you pay this, you don't get ads, then if there's an ad version and an ad-free version, then and the prices are good, which right now they are. You know, Hulu operates on that model where there's an ad version and a not ad version. Then it's kind of I'm surprised that in 2019 the ad issue is still such a issue. Like it's still such a selling point. It's like, is it that you're not, no one's watching linear television anymore. Is it that intrusive still?
Apparently in the United States. Yeah.
Actually, let me throw you a different context on this. We are only 7-8 years into the binging experience being a well-beloved kind of new option. I guess, we had it with DVDs and Blu-rays and so on, but in general, as a cultural norm, the binging experience, is it still a binging experience if you have to wait for ads? If you add 7 more minutes for every hour, half hour of television or whatever, like it could be that what they're saying is I like very much getting 3 episodes in 2 hours instead of 2 episodes. Like maybe that's all we're really talking about, is that maybe it's not an aversion to ads per se, but the interruption of pacing, that it's like it's worth it to be in this ecosystem so that I can get more faster and get a harder hit of this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it. Yeah. All right. We talked about how to watch a lot of things. Let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
I like yours, Trey. It's all about location.
Under Surveillance.
Preacher is going to end after season 4. Seth Rogen wrote the 4th and final season of Preacher is coming, and there was a video that said the new season will premiere August 4th. Video really didn't have any footage or anything in it. It was just kind of a in the Preacher style teaser. And this may be informed by the fact that Rogen and Evan Goldberg, who's the other guy who works on the show with Seth, recently left Sony TV for a deal at Lionsgate.
I am irrationally upset about this. Preacher is the best show on television. And look, I'm not going to say all shows need to go forever until they should be shot and put out of their misery, but Preacher is at the height of its game. It's as good as it's ever been. I'm in pain believing that it's been cut short.
Or as good as it ever will be, which is why they need to end it now, because you get to go out feeling it was perfect, and when I go tell everyone about how perfect it was, I don't have to do that weird caveat thing where it's like, it's perfect except for this like set of 5 episodes. Like, just don't, you'll have to get through those.
Season 6 is a little weird, but yeah, that kind of thing. Totally get you.
I mean, I guess I'm just so sad. It's so good, guys. It's so good.
Well, you could also look at our next piece of item news as an example. The season 9 finale of The Walking Dead was the lowest rated finale yet for the show. It's still up 20% over the previous week, and it's still the highest rated show on cable, so it ain't doing bad, which is likely why AMC released some more details and announced a formal series order for its 3rd Walking Dead series set to premiere on AMC in 2020. Matt DeGreet will move over from Walking Dead to showrun this new yet unnamed spinoff, and it'll focus on 2 women who are from the first generation to come of age in the post-apocalyptic world.
I don't know that you could have picked a better pairing of stories to instantly get me to reverse and say, kudos to you, Preacher. Congrats on going out on top.
I mean, what I find fascinating about The Walking Dead numbers is the last time it did the super like holy shit what numbers was the beginning of, I've got them in front of me, the beginning of season 8, which did 11 million live, right? That was like the last time they did anything above 10 million. And yes, they are still the highest rated show on cable, and the finale did 5 million, which relatively is really good, but it just kind of, it goes to show to me that every show dies. Every show eventually dies, even when and there are shows where they're never dying, but they're not never dying because people are still watching it. Like Law and Order, Supernatural, Supernatural probably being maybe the prime example right now, where everyone's like, that show's going to outlive us all. And then no, it's not. And the reason it was continuing was not because people were actually watching it live. It was because the syndication deals on that show were so ripe. And basically every episode printed money for Warner Brothers that it just paid to keep it going. Law and Order SVU operates on that same model. The Simpsons, Family, Seth MacFarlane has literally been told repeatedly, as long as you continue making Family Guy, you will continue getting a check for Family Guy. Like, and that's it, right? So The Walking Dead is an entity at this point that it's kind of like the first show that's staying alive because of streaming syndication versus traditional syndication. But the streaming deals on The Walking Dead are so ripe that the more they make, the more money they make. They're in profit. It just prints money.
So you're saying the show may be dead, but it keeps walking.
Yes, exactly. The Walking Dead is The Walking Dead.
I give you a pass on that one, Tom. It's fine.
Hey, we got some other developments here. Variety reporting that Netflix's live-action Cowboy Bebop has cast John Cho as Spike Spiegel, Mustafa Shakir as Jet Black, Daniela Pineda as Faye Valentine, and Alex Hassel as Vicious.
Yes. Everything looks great. I'm very excited. Shut up, all of you naysayers, you haters, you people who don't believe that magic exists in this world. I believe in Cowboy Bebop. Until I don't.
Bryce?
Cool. I'm glad that they've picked a very diverse cast to represent the original characters. That's very nice.
Deadline reports that Idris Elba will be in Suicide Squad 2, as we previously have talked about, but not as Deadshot. Deadshot, previously played by Will Smith. Will Smith has scheduling issues, can't be in this. Everyone thought, oh, Idris Elba's going to be Deadshot. No, he's not. Elba's going to play a new character so that maybe down the road Will Smith could play Deadshot again. In fact, even though there's rumors flitting around about Viola Davis, only Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is for sure a returning character in Suicide Squad 2. This is, of course, the one that James Gunn is working on and scheduled for an August 6, 2021 release.
How do you think that is that better for the show to have one holdover from the first iteration? I guess it's an implicit acknowledgement of like, we got one part right and that's it. We're going to hold on to that one part.
We got one part so right, she's in her own movie, and we'll probably be in this movie for like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
that may be.
I'm much more happy with this because there's two things at play. One is that if he were to take over Deadshot, it would be a very real acknowledgement that we went the wrong way with Deadshot, which they did. The other thing is it allows – well, it's more the same issue. It allows whoever Idris plays to come in without any baggage, because this movie's already coming in with a lot of baggage between the baggage of that first movie and the baggage of it being James Gunn and it being the baggage of basically it now appears that the movie was basically a leverage play of, oh, you want to fire me, Disney? Okay, I'll go over here and work with your competitor. And Disney going, crap, but too little too late, deal's already done. It's just, this movie has enough baggage already. The baggage of recasting the main character, and because it was Will Smith, Deadshot was the main character of an ensemble movie that really didn't need a main character. I feel like this is better for everybody.
Yeah, and they've said that this is not to be considered as a sequel, and so that kind of helps you swallow that. If you're like, okay, I guess it's not really Suicide Squad 2, okay, whatever. If it hardly has any of the same characters, I guess it'll feel that way anyway. Vincent D'Onofrio has been added to the CBS All Access true crime drama Interrogation. This is the one we've talked about before, where each episode is centered around an interrogation, and the episodes are meant to be watched in whatever order you want, except for the finale, which resolves the mystery. D'Onofrio plays an internal affairs officer who will become Kyle Gallner's character's biggest ally. Kyle Gallner playing the man accused of murder.
Dude, sounds great. I fell in love with his acting in Daredevil. He's great. I hope he's bald because he looks awesome bald.
Can I pose a question to you guys about
please.
This show? I watched your last few episodes, and you've been talking a lot about Love, Death, Robots. Which, by the way, Brian, I'm on your train exactly with that show.
Yeah.
The nudity and violence and cursing. I'm not an old man either, but it's just too much. It's just too much.
Also, we're old men. Punch it in. Old men. Old men unite.
But remember the whole thing with that show, how for different regions and different users, people got a different episode order? Mm-hmm. If the whole premise of this show is you can watch it in any order, what if they went crazy and did that same experiment with this show?
I don't know that I like anything about this, because if you give me a choice, don't do that. You're giving me homework. Knock it off. Or if you're mixing and matching stuff, it's like, what are you going to roll the dice and maybe I get the best version of this, maybe I don't? I thought you had a job. I thought the WGA was being represented by a certain talent agency. What is going on here?
Yeah, you don't like that kind of thing. Some people love this. Some people want to take activity. It's a little bit like a video game without being as immersive as a video game, where people I want to solve the mystery. So I want to watch the interrogations in an order that makes sense to help me solve the mystery. And if they're doing it right, they'll play into that. And the interface when you go to look at these will not be a list that you can decide any order from. It will help you decide, okay, you've watched this one. These are the ones that are most directly related to the one you just watched.
Oh, this is great. Okay. So if it begins with a very short quiz where it's which do you value more? Tarot cards, the beginning of Ultimate 3 Exodus. They flip around surprise or earnestness? Which do you value more?
Isn't that more homework and work to do? I
No,
mean,
no,
you
no.
didn't like that in Bandersnatch.
No, because he's leaning back and answering questions. He doesn't have to think about it.
Exactly. Like they're asking me what I like more, and I'm like, I like that more, I like that more, I like that more, I like that more. And it's like, and now your customized presentation begins. Like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, especially if it plays into the mystery aspect of it and says, like, here's the case, here are our suspects, who should we interrogate first? I think that could play really well. I also think it's funny that you guys think you're old. That's cute. Netflix has renewed Umbrella Academy for a 10-episode second season, and Ricky Gervais' Afterlife will also come back for a 6-episode season 2 in 2020 as well. Netflix has also ordered 10 episodes of Q-Force, about a handsome secret agent and his team of LGBTQ super spies.
I don't think I shared with you that I really tried to give a go to Gervais's Afterlife. And
Oh, yeah? No.
I just couldn't. It was miserable.
I was surprised how much I liked it because I don't like Ricky Gervais stuff, which is why I was very curious to watch the UK Office.
Reverse. I love Ricky Gervais stuff. I found this show utterly miserable. It was I really didn't like
Symmetry
it.
there. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I found so interesting was it felt like the first time where Gervais's shtick really fit the character, right? His shtick of being just the worst curmudgeon ever, which is the persona I know him as. And he figured out a story that perfectly fit that curmudgeon attitude, and it worked. I hate misery shows. I hate shows that live in grimdark misery, but they somehow, there's something about the way they structured this series where also it's funny. That's the thing. There's funny in it. And the one thing I cannot stand is anti-comedy. And this show I was so convinced was going to be another one of these, like, it's a comedy, but it's not. It's really a drama with some funny beats. No, it's got some funny stuff in it.
I don't know.
Like,
I maybe I need to give it 2 or 3 more episodes, but like so far it's like every second he's on screen is everybody, like him just being an ass, everybody wincing, and me feeling awkward. There's nothing fun about it. There was no joy, and I understand that it comes from a place of pain, but at least tell a joke. Don't just beat people. I don't know.
Vulture sources say CBS All Access is showing some serious interest in taking over one day at a time, which we mentioned recently Netflix has canceled. They would give it at least one more season, according to these sources, although one hang-up is Netflix has to approve any move to another streaming service. They could go to cable or TV without getting Netflix approval, but if they move to a streaming service like CBS All Access, they would have to get Netflix's approval for at least the next 2 years. Norman Lear has supposedly asked Reed Hastings to waive that provision, and Netflix will no longer have exclusive rights to the back catalog after June. So if Lear can convince Hastings to waive the provision and CBS All Access took it over, they could actually add the back catalog as well.
If anybody can just tell Netflix what to do, it's got to be Norman Lear, right? You get that phone call, and it's
have you guys talked about this story
which
Yes.
one?
on the show yet?
Yes, we have, about the cancellation.
Okay, because the first thing I'm literally looking. I have talked to some people about this, and people on the show, like executive producers on the show, and the one thing that strikes me as odd about the story that we're sourcing here, and the story everyone's kind of sourcing in general, I've heard 3-year hold.
Okay.
I've heard that Netflix has a 3-year hold, not a 2-year hold, and that's why they need their permission, and that the hold for going linear is 4 months. And the thing, and this is why when we were talking about how Netflix earlier, when we were talking about how Netflix does not take actions that would harm their image. You know what would harm their image? If a show they canceled ended up being a huge hit somewhere else. And I think that no matter how much Norman Lear puts on his happy old guy face, and wears that hat and walks into Hastings' office and says, "Come on, man, Work with me here.
I'd hate to say it, but I
like-
think you're 100% right. It's a bad play for Netflix to let this one get away. It was weird that they canceled it because it was well beloved, and they canceled it specifically citing the numbers, which is also very un-Netflixy.
Numbers that they also don't share with creators.
Right. So if they've already crossed that weird threshold, they only have to lose of this thing surviving in any form outside of Netflix.
Well, now the thing that I can't wrap my brain around and is bugging me is why every linear network, particularly the big five, have not jumped on this opportunity.
Numbers.
But even yeah, so you order one season for 10 episodes, you take the hit. Like, all right, new Fox, right? Because now Fox Broadcasting is independent. It wasn't part of the Disney deal. So they need to fill content. Can you imagine if Fox saved a show?
I don't know. I bet they know that the numbers that will actually watch won't make it worth it.
I mean, yeah.
But
I mean, you're
CBS
right. I mean, it's just the
Because
image.
CBS All Access can be like, hey, as long as this brings in a few subscriptions, that's all we care about. Like,
Right.
we don't need to have big numbers, right? So that makes sense to me.
But some of CBS's biggest shows are multi-camera comedies like this.
CBS broadcast, yes.
Right. The other weird thing about this story is this last line here in this Engadget article. In addition, Netflix will no longer have exclusive rights to the show by mid-June. Is that
Well, and that's what
exclusive rights to the library, so they'll be able to take the library to Amazon and Hulu and say, would you guys like to have this too?
But
they
for
won't be
something
able
that
to
was-
make it.
But for something that was billed as a Netflix original, it seems weird that even with the show being canceled, that Netflix wouldn't hold on to that.
Yeah, Netflix original
indefinitely.
means a lot of different things. I think it was Sony that made this. So
Right. It
Sony
was.
must have had a little bit of a different deal.
The thing to keep in mind about Netflix is that it is not. When you see the words Netflix original, that can mean 1,000 different things, because there are smaller entities within the corporation that is Netflix that are technically Netflix, but not. There are shows that are Netflix originals that if I told you the budget of them, your head would spin, because you go, Netflix makes $10 million an episode shows. No, they also make $1 million an episode shows only in Canada. Like there's a whole ecosystem of what makes up a Netflix original. And I think this is also the first instance and the Marvel shows were the same way. This first instance of why Netflix is going to start as much as possible, stop working with third-party studios so they can avoid situations like this.
Yeah. All right, we got a few trailers to take a look at. Avengers Endgame even got a new clip out on Good Morning America today, but had a new trailer last week. Of course, it comes out April 26th, and advanced ticket sales started April 2nd, which took down some ticketing platforms. Fandango reported Avengers Endgame passed The Force Awakens for best first-day U.S. ticket sales, and Atom Tickets said it was a record for them as well.
Who knows? Maybe it'll turn into something.
I think people might watch this thing. Yeah, it sounds like you don't care, Brian.
Well, no. I mean, I'm already in.
Just show me the movie.
Yeah, you know my policy. Like, I'm already in. I have nothing to gain from watching trailers.
Can we just
trailer-
talk about, though, how not robust these servers are anymore? Like, you imagine at this point, how many times do we have to learn that lesson?
Listen, as someone whose wife works for Fandango Rotten Tomatoes, I would like to point out that Fandango didn't go down.
Yes.
It was the theater sites that went down.
Also, for the
that is-
record, think about it. Where are the incentives on this? If you are Marvel Studios, you kind of want the news to be talking about how it crashed all the servers. So you have no incentive to try to make this happen.
A trailer for the Downton Abbey movie was shown at CinemaCon, revealing the King and Queen will be visiting Lord Grantham. The movie arrives internationally September 12th with a North American release on September 20th. Anybody excited?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have brought in my proxy excitement angel all the way from the United Kingdom, Dr. James Grime of Numberphile and Singing Banana Channel, to give my personal official opinion about my excitement level for this. Take it away, Dr. James Grime.
Meh.
That is Brian's official British sourced opinion. A trailer for The Joker starring Joaquin Phoenix focused on the origin story. Joker's coming to theaters October 4th. Any thoughts?
Looked really good. Like, I'm not normally a fan of revisionist, changing the archetypal stories, but what I saw told a story and had a angle. And I'd like to live in the universe where more people are telling different angles on folktales, because remember, like back in the days when people were telling stories around the campfires about the gods of Olympus, somebody was like, well, what if Hercules was like this? And then you got weird ass Hercules stories. We live in that world now where it's like,
you are an old man, because I don't remember those days.
I remember. I remember.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about this particular movie. I'm not sold there yet, but the idea of DC just going, you know what? F it. Let's go back to like we'll do our Marvel competitor shared universe.
I'll tell you what. Try this on for size. Look me in the eye and tell me that this will be worse than Venom. Tell me that that's possible.
I purposely have not seen Venom because I can't. I can't.
It's going to be better than Venom. And I like the idea of what Venom aspired to be, whether or not it hit the mark or not.
But but the idea of the individual, like the idea of one-off stories, right? These one-off films with these characters, I'm game for that, right? I'm there for that.
A couple other things. Netflix released a trailer for the 3rd season of Top Boy coming this autumn. The show's first 2 seasons were on Channel 4 in the UK. The show features several rappers and follows the lives of people living in a fictional council estate that has succumbed to drugs and violence. It's been about 6 years, if I'm right, since season 2. Sometimes folks call this the Wire of the UK. Brian, what do you think?
Well, look, as somebody who has representation in the UK, I've brought in Dr. James Grime of the Singing Banana Channel and Number File to give my official opinion on this. Take it away.
It's a little longer than the Downton Abbey.
No, genuinely, I've not even heard of this program.
Oh, yeah, I haven't. I mean, what I meant to say was I've not even heard of this program.
And
I'm a
Coachella,
TV critic and I haven't heard of this program. Like,
well, because it's a UK program, and I don't think Netflix has been doing a lot of press for it up until just now. So, Coachella begins this coming weekend. The first weekend will be streamed as usual as a group of YouTube channels, live and time shifted. Coachella has also announced Coachella Curated, which will have both live sets, likely from weekend 1, as well as behind the scenes content and interviews. Coachella weekend 1 is April 12th through the 14th. All right, let's talk about what we've had our eyes on. Starting with you, Merrill. What have you been watching?
okay, so the first show I've been praising this show since before it was made, because that's how much the script made me go, oh my god. So it's a show on ABC, Whiskey Cavalier, created by David Hemmingson, who created the Kitchen Confidential sitcom way back, starring Bradley Cooper, executive produced by Bill Lawrence, starring Lauren Cohen and Seth, I forget his last name, but it's basically it's a Mission Impossible farce. It's a new take on a Mission Impossible farce. Basically, it's a super team. You know, the FBI's greatest top agent, the CIA's greatest top agent are brought together, and hilarity ensues. And there's something just refreshing about this kind of show because we're not getting this kind of show, right? Everyone's doing the grim dark thing. Everyone's doing the, it's got to be the next Breaking Bad, man. So when someone turns around and says, I'd rather just try and make the next Bones, that's what this is. This is Bones with spies. And you know what? The action's great. It's the Peter Atencio from Key and Peele and the JCVD Amazon show is the producing director on it. It's just so much fun. It's so much fun. It's so enjoyable. And I cannot recommend that show enough. The other one that I was checking out was What We Do in the Shadows over at FX.
I hear it's great.
And
I hear
it's great. I'm again like Afterlife, another show that I was convinced I was gonna hate. Convinced. I like this mockumentary style, and it's vampires, and I don't know, and I don't, again, it's like, particularly at FX and the FXX, I don't love that offbeat brand of humor that they do.
Did you see the movie?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't.
Oh, how interesting. So even not having seen the movie, you didn't have to judge that against it.
No,
that's great that it stands on its own.
I am so interested in it is good. It is funny. It's meme worthy. There are moments in it where you go, that's a GIF. That's also a gift. Like it's wonderful. I am so shocked by how much I enjoyed it.
Now, Merrill, we also come to understand that maybe you've gotten to see a few screeners of Cobra Kai season 2.
Oh, have I?
Can you give me a punch up or a punch down?
Like a thumbs up?
Yeah, that's
What I-
how I go back.
Yeah, he's not asking you to make the show better.
Yeah.
What I will say is, if you enjoyed season 1, then you need to strap in, because basically what season 2 is. Hey, you know how season 1 ended up being way better than any of us thought it was going to be?
Yep.
Well, this is now the show we're making because we know what we have now, and we know you like it, and we don't have to prove to you that it's good. We're just going to go be good, and you're going to feel.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful to hear.
I think you've just made Brian's day.
Yes, and made me glad that I never unsubscribed from YouTube Premium.
Brian, what have you been watching?
I did watch, I don't know, like 4 or 5 episodes of Barry. We'll talk about that in Spoilerin Time. Saw the Shazam. We could talk about that in Spoilerin Time. And I'm did The Office. I didn't do too many extracurricular watch-ins this go round.
The one thing I'll mention is for the current Geek Film Festival, where we've been going back and watched some of the greatest movies of all time. I watched It Happened One Night from 1934 with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert, and loved it way more than I expected to. I thought, this is a piece of film history. It's Frank Capra. I'll have a good time. Just all of the patter that you expect from a 30s movie. It's the prototype for all future romantic comedies after it. It was just a blast. So even if you don't really usually like old movies, if you just like that style of like, hey, baby, fast talking kind of stuff and want a well-done movie, check out It Happened One Night. It's only, it's not even 100 years old yet. So there you go.
It's not even.
What should we be on the lookout for, Bryce?
Hey, we've got, I actually watched something today. I watched the first 2 episodes of the new Netflix series Osmosis. Have you guys heard of this yet?
I don't think so.
No.
So this is a French language sci-fi series that follows a dating startup called Osmosis, and they use neurological implants and like big data to find someone's soulmate. But along the way, they're still like a startup, and there's a lot of competition in the romance sector. There's like a big VR competitor that they're trying to beat, but money's running tight. They're still working on like a public beta. Their investors want to like cut and run from some of the leadership on the at the company, and the brother and sister who are sort of in charge of the company are trying to get this beta program off the ground and get ready for a public launch in a month. Which is definitely not enough time for them. And there's also this like family side where their mother is in a coma and is close to dying, and the sister wants to see if they can use this already sketchy neurological implant program to save their mother or to do something with her mother's memories. There's kind of a lot of different angles here, but I think this is a kind of interesting show. Visually it has kind of a different look, being a show made in France, kind of in the way that like 3%, the Brazilian sci-fi show, had its own sort of take on futurism. I think this has its own sort of unique look. And I watched it. I watched the first episode in French with the French language and subtitles, and then I watched the second episode with English dub. And I think the English dub it's not great, but it's workable. You could watch. I mean, because I think this is maybe not a show you would definitely want to pay super close attention to, but the English dub gives you a little bit of leeway to maybe not pay all attention to it.
Does this share any DNA with a certain episode of Black Mirror? Like
I was gonna say the same thing, man. Like, is it Hang the DJ with like, is it Hang DJ from the corporate side?
No.
Brian, that's what you said when we talked about it like weeks ago on the show.
Yes, yeah. Guess what, Tom? I'm consistent. It's called a benefit, not a bug.
No,
I like it.
No, it's not. It's more. It's kind of more character pieces. The second episode follows some of the beta testers and shows them trying to meet their soulmates and see if it works. Because it's not a skeleton key, right? It's like they can tell you who your soulmate is, but you also have to talk to that person and kind of get them interested in you because they're not in the program.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's kind of an interesting sort of thing. So that's Osmosis. 8-hour-long episodes are streaming now on Netflix.
If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email us, cordkillers@gmail.com. Real quickly, if you want to keep up on what I'm doing, I've got a newsletter out there at Free Tom Newsletter. It's not Free Tom. It's Free Tom Newsletter. In fact, this past Friday, I dropped in the newsletter that I was going to be at a Sword and Laser meetup, and one Andrew Main read the newsletter and came out to meet us. So you just never know what you might find out. You got to subscribe at freetomnewsletter.com.
Free Tom.
Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
At CinemaCon last week, Motion Picture Association of America CEO Charles Rivkin welcomed Netflix into the fold of the MPAA while pointing out the global and domestic theater box office revenue grew last year. Meanwhile, John Fithian, the CEO of the National Association of Theater Owners, which, by the way, spells NATO, just so you know, said that a study with Ernst & Young found that average streaming hours per week was higher for respondents who visited a movie theater 9 times per year or more compared to those who visited a theater only once or twice.
Merrill, I'm betting you'll have an insight that we probably wouldn't see coming. What is an unexpected effect of Netflix joining the MPAA?
I mean, the one thing I think is that one is their content is going to be much regulated is the wrong word because it's not governmental regulated, but I think it's going to be regulated by the industry itself, right? And there's going to be much more of having those ratings on those Netflix films is, I think, a game changer for those Netflix films. And I think that when they're able to classify this is, it's when they're not going by the TV ratings anymore, because right now all their films operate under the TV. This is TVMA, this is TVPG, whatever. So when it becomes this is R, this is this is PG. I think the one thing I think it would be interesting to see is, do they start allowing NC-17 as a rating on Netflix films, or will they fight those?
We're coming for you, Love, Death, Robots. Meanwhile, I must admit, I probably would have appreciated Okja getting an R rating because enough of that movie seemed appropriate for my kids that there were, we were invested by the time we got to parts where I was like, ooh, so this is what we're watching. But in the meantime, a pilot program from Google puts a row of advertisements on Android TV device home screens. A Sony support page says, quote, "The purpose is to help you discover new apps and content for your TV." Sony says it's managed by Google and cannot be customized. XDA developers report seeing this strip in Sony Smart TVs Mi Box 3 and NVIDIA Shield TV. Are you allergic to this, Merrill?
Like I said earlier, I'm so beyond the ad debate, these days. I feel like it's so beyond as a thing that we need to be concerned with. I mean, it matters. The ad debate matters, but they're putting, and I get why we're upset. It's another form of what data are they mining from that ad strip? I get it. I agree, but there are so many other problems to tackle that I feel like losing sleep over there being a bar ad on your smart TV is not chief amongst the biggest issues that need to be tackled right now.
To me, it all depends on what's in there. Is it clear that they're ads, and are the ads for TV shows and movies? If they're ads for things that are not relevant to picking TV shows and movies, I don't want to see that. And if they're clearly labeled as ads, so I know, okay, those things are paid for, then I'm fine with it.
My Roku, idle screen always has a movie ad, movie poster on it. It's like, click play right now and it will load to this movie. Fine. That doesn't take any time out of my day.
The U.S. Department of Justice has warned the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences that changing its rules to limit the eligibility for Netflix films at Oscars could diminish sales for the excluded films and potentially violate Section 1 of the Sherman Act that, and they quote, prohibits anti-competitive agreements among competitors. Steven Spielberg has been advocating, as we've talked about on the show, to eliminate movies that premiere on streaming too close to their theatrical premieres. Currently, a movie just has to have a theatrical run, in most cases, to qualify for an Oscar.
Weird flex, United States government, but okay.
Do we really have to say good job to this administration?
Well, no, I don't know why they're poking this. That's a fairly spurious connection to say that because you don't give them an award, it's going to damage their sales, and that's your bizarre
and that's what's so weird
anti-competitive.
about it. It'd be one thing if the Motion Picture Arts and Sciences said we're going to implement this, and then the DOJ said we're going to be watching to see if this can be demonstrated to affect film sales because you all are competitors and you're shutting out one of your competitors. That could be antitrust. That makes sense to me. But just kind of coming out preemptively before there's even a vote, just based on the rhetoric and saying, yeah, we're pretty sure this could be it. I don't know. It seems a little early in the process for the DOJ to get involved.
I'm with you. T-Mobile announced it has reached an agreement to include Viacom channels in T-Mobile's forthcoming streaming TV service that includes MTV, Nickelodeon, BET, Comedy Central, and more. Viacom has been pulling its channels from services like PSVU and recently reached an agreement to keep its channels on AT&T, DirecTV, and DirecTV Now services. T-Mobile bought Layer 3 last year in order to power a streaming TV service that it says plans to launch. It plans to launch by the end of the year.
Okay, I actually have a lot of thoughts about this one.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Viacom is the last holdout of the major corporate entities of media that have, for whatever reason, very, very late to the game on pretty much every streamer. They're still not on YouTube TV. But the streamer that they're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, is Pluto TV. It was just announced as well that all of their content is going to be thrown to Pluto TV, which just recently launched globally, I think like 2 weeks ago. It's an ad-supported streaming service. And so whenever I hear about these stories about Viacom finally getting onto whatever distributor is of the day, it's always taken with like, dude, who is giving these people advice? Because they are taking the wrong advice. I don't like Viacom is not Disney. Viacom is not Warner Brothers. The Viacom library on its face does not have enough content to power its own service. Warner Brothers,
if I remember correctly,
this is not its own service. This is T-Mobile's streaming service.
But this is that
it's actually doing what you want them to do. Viacom saying, yes, we want to be on this service.
Right, but they're not on. They're always fighting their services. That's more the point I think I'm trying to get to. Is they're always in a fight with every single distributor. It's why.
But not anymore. They're piecing our time, Merrill. They finally come to an agreement with T-Mobile, and they just came to an agreement with DirecTV. Maybe they're finally listening to you.
Hopefully.
An update to TiVo's skip mode will soon bypass commercials automatically without you needing to press a button. A Facebook post by a TiVo employee confirmed, with a source by That's Not Funny saying the feature will arrive on boxes that get the new Hydra interface coming later this spring, leading many TiVo fans to say, "Hail Hydra."
Dude, lagging, not leading. This is not an indication that the world is changing. This is an indication that the world has changed, and that the skipping commercials is perceived as of so little consequence that now this is the whimper with which that world ends.
Yeah. There should have been a big fight over this years ago. I doubt we even see that.
And TiVo could have been, I don't know, but we also saw like the Hopper feature. They already took their lumps on all that back in the day. Roku's added HBO to its add-on subscription service sold through the Roku app for $14.99 a month. Roku sells subscriptions to Showtime, Starz, Epix, and other networks. Congratulations. Everybody does the same things.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on to get some dispatches from the front. Poor Richard. We're going to help Richard out. Richard in Annapolis is not happy. He says, I'm sure this is probably one of dozens or hundreds of messages you've received about this, but this bleep is exactly why I bleep and hate the bleeping streaming services. Tonight, I go to watch the next episode of The Office UK with my fellow Spoilerin Time Video Club members, and wouldn't ya bleeping know it, but it's bleeping gone from Netflix. Bleeping gone. I searched, I Googled, I even bleeping used Bing, but I couldn't find out what happened. Finally, I decided to try Tom's oft-recommended service, Just Watch, and sure enough, The Office UK is now on Hulu. What the bleep? If I weren't home, nobody else in my household would have known where to dig to find out what happened. Instead, I'd be getting a call asking, what the bleep happened to The Office? It's bleeping gone. So, seriously, WTB, This is why I still use my bleeping TiVo. I hate this bleeping bleep, Richard in bleeping Annapolis.
Pissed.
We talked about this in After Talk last week. I went through the exact same situation, and again, just watched Save the Day for me as well. Got an email from Umbre saying, "Howdy, killers. Just wanted to comment on the topics of subs versus dubs from episode 261. Being dyslexic, the act of reading is painful for me. As such, the subtitles are impossible to read. It requires me to pause the show and hope the text will be clear enough or show outside the video player timeline UI. Otherwise, I'll miss dialogue because I can't read a conversation in real time. This can easily more than double the time it takes to watch the show. For these reasons, I avoid subtitled shows and would even accept the worst possible voice acting possible. Netflix, thankfully, has been a game changer because it's brought dubbing to a lot of its original shows, even many foreign ones. I hope they keep it up. I appreciate the passion for subs or for hearing a foreign language mixed into a show for artistic or realistic means, but dubbing for accessibility rarely seems to come up in conversations the way subtitles and the description audio for the deaf might." I think that's a really good take. Really interesting. We hadn't thought about it in that context.
Yeah, no, thank you, Umbre, for that. Also, Blair wrote in with a similar article or a similar email with the issues with dyslexia and ADHD, kind of a similar point. So thank you to both of them. And then Alex writes, "Besides comedian and cars getting coffee, the brief but terrible Powers show, my primary interest in Crackle that I really installed it for and used it for was the Three Stooges. Apparently, it was the only place for years to get Three Stooges." He says also Die Hard wasn't on Crackle during Christmas. Die Hard 2 and 3 were, which were also on FX at the same time. He doesn't want to forgive them for that. But Three Stooges for Crackle. There we go. We have our answer.
Nailed it.
Yeah. Merrill Barr, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate having you with us.
Thank you.
If folks want to find more of what you've got going on, where should they go?
So first, primary is my Twitter, twitter.com/Merrill Barr, MERRILLBARR. You can find my writings about the modern rogue on Forbes.com.
Yeah.
And the thing I like to pimp the most is I have a podcast called Word Tetris, the show about rewriting. Writing's hard, rewriting is harder. Latest guest was Amy Berg, showrunner of Counterpart and a lot of other stuff. Her resume is huge. There's a Patreon. Basically, the first 20 minutes of every episode are available for free on wordtetris.com and all the podcatchers. And then if you go to the Patreon and sign up for the $1 an episode tier, you get the full episode. But if you sign up for the $3 an episode tier, you get a bonus episode. You get a full episode plus a bonus episode. And including that, there are some full episodes that aren't even available, don't even have like the 20 minutes free option. So you can only get them at the Patreon. So best bet, go to Patreon, patreon.com/wordtetris.
Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com. We're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, also on diamondclub.tv. Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll cut your cords again next week.
Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've got a name.
You just supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors, look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your
There's
name in
some
pixels on
classic
the internet.
names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.